had to do that. But I had had a little bit of backlash from a couple of family members, and I'm still struggling with some of those issues. But a funny thing happened on the way to Texas, in fact. I was invited to have a reading, a book signing at the Senior Center in Amarillo, Texas. My niece had helped establish that center years ago. So some of her friends who worked there she took me there and showed the book and me and, showing off her her niece from Seattle. And they invited me to come speak. And lots of people come to it. It's a really nice senior center. It's really big. But after a few days, she and I came back from some shopping trips and so forth, and we got a phone call saying that Teresa is disinvited to come and speak at the senior center. That's my word, disinvited, but she was not to come on that designated day to speak about her book. We were puzzled, but then I began to think about, where am I? I'm in the Panhandle of Texas. Return to the Fold is chapter 6. And we were, my birth family, my brothers, sisters, nieces, and so forth, and my father were in Taos, New Mexico, north of Taos, at what's called a gorge. Some of you may know what I mean. Beautiful area, and there's a place for picnicking and viewing. You can see down to the river below, and it's gorgeous. Anyway, we were up there for this reunion in 1981. Ray Mickey, that's my dad, in his green and white lattice folding chair, enjoyed watching the scene. There was hawks soaring over the mountains, over the view in front of us. It was just gorgeous. So he enjoyed watching that scene of a lone red-tipped hawk as it circled and dipped above us to send a slash in the earth. It was 1981, and the Mickeys were gathered around the patriarch of the clan for what they thought might be the last time. His older daughter, Fern, and her husband drove him in their spacious RV from his home in Kenya, Texas, to the reunion more than 300 miles away. Fern, Fred, and Daddy got there first that Friday morning to claim the best picnic kiosk for the big event. Fern had naturally taken over as matriarch in the family after Mama died in 1972. She kept the clan together via letters, phone calls, cards, photos, and the news about her latest genealogy finds. She planned extended family reunions as well as smaller get-togethers with her own children. I had driven across the country from West Virginia in my 1978 brown VW Dasher. Michelle remembers that. For a job interview scheduled for the end of May at a small teacher's college in Kansas. I arrived in Texas a week before the interview so I could visit Daddy and then attend the family reunion at the Gorge in northern New Mexico. I had not seen any of the families since 1976, 5 long years. I was divorced in 1978, a first among my siblings, holding the new titles of divorcee and doctor, dubious monikers in a family of fundamentalist Christians, had convinced me of the wisdom of staying out of sight and sound for a while. 5 years, in fact. I knew this reunion was a pivotal moment for me with my birth family. It was the first time I had dared come back to visit since the divorce and completion of my doctorate in multicultural education at West Virginia University. I felt that if I did not make the first overture to re-enter the family circle, they would not reach out to me. Divorce was a grievous sin, and higher education, especially for women, was not valued, and in fact was frowned on. Claude, my brother, who's a preacher, had conjectured that some of the families that I must be a closet lesbian to have divorced a good man who didn't beat me and was a good father and a fine breadwinner for my children. For all these reasons, I was anxious about the reconnection, but also eager to get back into the fold of the family. I deeply miss them, even though we were oceans apart in our core beliefs about religion and so many other perspectives on living a moral and ethical life. So, then to the very last page. I learned early in life that Daddy did not value women and girls as much as he did men and boys. I was relentlessly subjected to pointed lessons of subservient femininity throughout my early years and adolescence. And as a result, I had to spend most of my young adulthood and middle years overcoming and then growing beyond them. One of the last entries in one of my palace journals sums up my feelings about this family reunion that we had in 1981. My greatest satisfaction in remembering the reunion is that I made the effort to reconnect with my birth family and that we rekindled our relationship. It was successful in that they welcomed me back into the fold, even though I had launched myself into the direction of economic independence, onto a spiritual path outside their church, onto a professional track in academia, and into a lifestyle as an unmarried, liberated woman, all of which was foreign to them. And yet they accepted me back into the family. At first I was surprised at this. Then it hit me like a ton of bricks. They really do love me deep down, but their religious beliefs wouldn't allow them to show it or express it. It could be that they applied the parables of Luke 15 about the lost sheep and prodigal son to me, their prodigal daughter, dissident daughter, and sister. Thank you. So, I can ask questions, take questions. Question is, was there something specific that happened that made you want to break the there was not one specific event. However, and I write about this in the book, Good, welcome everybody. I remember as a child when I was just in the book, of riding, it seemed like over the road, back and forth to church. Wednesday, welcome church meetings, and I was little and in the back seat, and I just thought, I don't like this. Of course, it was boring, but also, as I got a little older, I began to listen, and I didn't like what they were saying because it scared the hooey out of me. I'll say a nice word. It was just like, it was all about hell, fire, and brimstone. So as a child, I began to say, I don't like this church, or this way of religion. But I didn't say it to anybody, of course. It was dangerous. But I began to feel that as a young child. So it began to turn my head against that kind of very strict, literal interpretation of the Holy Word. And at the Elliott Bay book reading, a man on the front row, asked me a question, and he said, well, what do you, it was kind of like, he must have been a minister of some church, I don't know, but he sat there and really seriously was going to ask me a big question. He said, now what do you mean by fundamentalism in the title of my book? And I said, I gulped, and I said, I believe that the way I've written it and used it in this book is not to make fun of any religion, nor fundamentalists, any religion, but I believe that it's the literal interpretation of the Holy Word, whatever that is, whether it's Muslim, Christian, Jewish, or so forth. It's that literal interpretation of the Holy Words. The question is, when I don't know your name, but when
I'm Nancy.
Nancy says people tell her she should write her story, then she starts writing and feels too self-important. And like is that what you mean?
I looked it up myself.
I felt that feeling for a nanosecond. And I think as I started writing these stories, 20 years ago, I really didn't think of it as writing about myself so much as I was recording what happened to Mama and Daddy, and we worked together, and my girlfriends, and the church, and what it looked like and smelled like, and to get up real early in the morning and hear the doves out in those fields, and we'd go out there and chop cotton and then drink icy cold water at the end. And my mama would not let me wear pants nor anything that was not modest. So in the field, this is kind of how I got to writing, but it was about me, but it was also about the culture that I was brought up in. So that's how I got around feeling like it was just selfish about me. But she, for example, she sewed. So she made these bonnets. I mean, literally every piece of it, including the slats that went in to hold the bonnet out here this far in front of your face. So I don't want to tell you how old I am, but I'm getting pretty old. And I'm still pretty proud of my skin. And I'm glad that Mama made me wear those bonnets. But at the time, ooh, I didn't want to. It looked so ugly to have an old bonnet over my face, but it kept my skin from getting burned. Very good question. How did I get to the feminist community eventually? It was a long road, I tell you. I wasn't a feminist, didn't even know really the meaning of the word when I was growing up in Texas. But I taught multicultural gender education at Iowa State University, and that's what my specialty was in the doctoral program. So that incorporated feminist literature and feminist writing, and gradually I began to understand what it meant. So it was a slow process, and I, with all and all the understand it, thinking it meant something bad, a bad twist on it and so forth, but I just learned that it means women and men need to have equality in life, pay, and all sorts of things, but it doesn't mean one's better than the other. Well, I'll talk about courage. Okay, so you all heard her question, or comment. So I had several very delicate things also that I was concerned about publishing publicly, and thank you for coming. And a few of them stayed in the book. Some of them I cut out, but it is true. Some of the things that are kind of the dark underbelly of our families and our lives are not very palatable to other people, mostly. While you tell your own truth in writing, you have to be, I had to be prepared to deal with the flack that might happen. And some flack has happened. And it's in the book, so I'll just share this. One was about a male relative who did sexual abuse on girls, and I was one of them. In a very, it was kind of low-key abuse, but it was inappropriate, very wrong. But young people don't know how to talk about it, don't even know what it is. So I never said anything about it. But I finally decided to write about that because I knew he kept doing it with other girls, and I never wrote anything in my book anything, and especially nothing about that was real controversial, that I didn't know absolutely happened, and that I was there. I knew it. I saw it. So when you get to that point of surety, and also know that abuse is swept under the rug and kept silent, that's what keeps perpetuating it. And we don't want that to keep happening in families. So I wrote about that, and that's one of the things that caused some flack. And I understand why. It's painful for others, you know, the children of that person to read that about their father. But it happened, and it hurt me a lot. And I can only imagine how it hurt these other girls that he did things to. So I wrote about it, and I'm dealing with the response. And you know it's going to probably bring something out, but I think it's worth the risk. About speaking with a person who's still embedded in fundamentalist Christianity or fundamentalist belief system. I think it's very difficult. I agree, and I understand what a bind you're in. I dealt with it as equitably as I could, mainly by my actions. I simply refused to keep doing what they said I should do when I was of age to do so. But I remember thinking, as about 10 or 12 years old, after I was in puberty, that I really wanted to run away. But I had the sense to know that I couldn't survive if I ran away. So I stayed in it, but I began to build up an internal reservoir of reasons why I didn't believe what they were trying to teach me. But then to talk about it, I wasn't able to talk about it for a long, long time, and didn't until I got away from it. As long as I was dependent on the parents and these brothers and sisters, I couldn't confront them. I was too small. I just got away from it. That was my method at first, but then later I could hold my own. After I learned more about, I didn't even understand what it was all about. You know, when you're young, you don't have the words to describe it. But later, I understood. I took a lot of sociology classes and religion classes and Unitarian Universalism. I began to understand what was going on. And then I could talk to people, including some of my relatives, and my brother, who's died a few years ago, but I could talk with him about he was still a fundamentalist, but he was a little more open-minded than the other family members, but he and I could talk about it. But it's just gradually gain the courage and the knowledge yourself. You have to really know what you're talking about, because as you know, well, probably, many people who have very strict fundamentalist beliefs, they're really good talkers, and they can quote Bible scripture a lot better than I can, you know. So you get your ducks in a row.